Hello. So this is kind of a weird way to do this, but when I'm gone on maternity leave, this might be a way that I can interact with you is by making short videos like this. So, greetings. Everything is fine. I'm not in labor or anything. I just have to take my husband to the doctor. That's why I'm not here today. But I don't want you to be behind, and I know you're more than capable of doing this. I believe in you. So I want you to watch this video and try to understand the concept of Tpcastt. Now, on Thursday, you have your vocabulary quiz because remember the weeks kind of got messed up with us being out today. But what you're going to do is on Thursday you'll have your vocab quiz, and then I will have looked at your Tpcastt as you will leave them with the substitute today. And then on Thursday we're going to go over it a little bit more just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I want you to try. Shouldn't be too bad, but hopefully this will be pretty simple. All right. So Tpcastt is basically a strategy we use, especially in poetry. It has an acronym. It stands for title, paraphrase, connotation and craft, attitude, shift, title again, that's not a typo, and theme. So again, this will be something that you can reference, but if you want to write down anything as you go, just so you don't have to listen to me again, then you're welcome to do that. The first part, title, what you're going to do is before you even read a poem at all, the title is there for a reason. So look at the title and say, okay, what could this mean? Like if in Emily Dickinson's Because I Could Not Stop for Death, if you just read the title, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this about? You know, you have an initial reaction to it. That's what I want you to write it down. Sometimes it can be kind of cryptic. In other words, it's not always super straightforward, but I want you to be kind of literal with this, like just your initial reaction about what you think the poem's going to be about, things like that. Then paraphrase is after you've read the poem, it's literal meaning. So if you can't understand the literal, you can't understand the figurative. So if we're talking about My Papa's Waltz, for example, in paraphrasing that, maybe you literally say it is about a dad dancing around with his son. Whatever. You're paraphrasing it the best you can, but it's going to be very literal. You're not going to take into account any kind of analyses or figurative language or anything. And then connotation and craft, it may be called either one. It'll be called connotation or it'll be called craft as you move through your academic career. It's the same thing. But basically this is the meat, the crux of Tpcastt, because anything that you have ever learned about as far as diction, syntax, simile, metaphor, imagery, symbol, any of those things that are all about the figurative language goes into this. So if as you're reading it, you're like, oh, that's a metaphor, or oh, that's an illusion, or this has a really good image, this is obviously imagery, whatever. That stuff goes in connotation and craft. So basically any literary device that's used in the poem at all is going to be there. So attitude. We talked about this at the beginning of the year especially. Attitude is tone. It's temporary. But, you know, and I keep mentioning it to you, like, if your mom's like, don't get that tone with me, she's like, don't, you know, stop it with attitude, right? So if you are having trouble determining the tone of the poem that you've picked, you could start by deciding whether or not the overall poem is like positive or negative, like if you feel like this is a positive poem or a negative poem, and then you can kind of narrow it down from there. So, I will tell you that most of the time the attitude is based on the speaker and or the poet. So let's say that a poet really doesn't like dogs and there's dog stuff in the poem. It's going to be like a negative tone and attitude because they don't like dogs. So just look at how does the overall attitude seem to be. And then shift is it's actually, to me, it's one of the more obvious usually, but you kind of have to be careful. So typically there's going to be a shift in pretty much every poem you do, but it could be a shift in tone. It could be a shift in subject matter, like now we're talking about something else. It could be about rhyme scheme or anything. So if you look for the shift, then try to figure out why there's a shift there. So I gave you like a little cheat sheet here as far as devices that would help you discover that. Keywords like but, yet, however, although. We know that those are transition words. So if we're transitioning from one concept to another, that would be considered a shift. So if they say, it was a really pretty day outside, however, everyone knew that it was going to become really gloomy. I don't, there's a transition there. And then punctuation, dashes, periods, colons, ellipses, three dots. Sometimes that's a good indicator as far as that a shift is about to show up the next line. Stanza or paragraph divisions, like you've seen this before. You've got the stanza and then you've got a space, then you've got the stanza and sometimes that's all it takes. As far as the lines themselves, a stanza length or both, like one shorter, like all of a sudden you've got these 6-line stanzas and then a 2-line stanza, and that's because there's a shift there in the concept. Structure, as far as how it's written overall, changes in sound and changes in diction. Like if you start out being super, super formal and then you suddenly shift and you're like, I do what I want, whatever. That's usually a shift as well. So you're going to be looking for any of those things to indicate a shift. And it simply might be that you get what the story's about, you get what the poem's about, and then all of a sudden there's like this change, this transition that happens. That's a shift. And then you look at the title again. After you've done all of this, what did you notice about it in its entirety after you've analyzed it in this way? Because that's a lot. It probably won't take you very long to do, but it's a lot to really look at when done well. So looking back at the title, more figuratively, in other words, not the literal meaning, but what it could be implying, right? And then theme is basically like the message. We talked about this at the beginning of the year. So what statement about life is the poet making is usually a good guess. Be careful though. Sometimes the theme is difficult to narrow down, and you'll be tempted to put the subject matter instead of the theme. And I told you at the beginning of the year, a subject matter would be like love, family, friendship, something like that, something very basic, but overarching. If it's a theme, it's a message. So what is the message about those things? So a message can be that, having a solid family structure can really impact someone's life for the better. I don't know. It can't just be, though, family, love, friendship, things like that. That's subject matter, not theme. So what are you going to do? So you can look up any poem of your choice. Obviously, and I don't think anybody's going to do this incorrectly, but I have to say, school appropriate, obviously, because if you just look up, poems, sometimes things come up and I need you to, you can literally type in the world's best poems or something like that, and it's going to give you a great list. Take that poem, write it neatly, because I don't want you to print it out. I want you to do it this way for a reason. Write the poem neatly on a piece of computer paper. My computer paper is in the back of the room in one of those trays on that long table. And then analyze the poem in depth. So like you know how we do on your AOWs, your active reading, and like you'll make little notes on the side or whatever. That's what I mean. Like just kind of analyze it the best you can. And then you're also going to receive, should you choose to use it, a Tpcastt chart that kind of reminds you about everything. And you can just fill in Tpcastt for the poem you picked in this chart, and that's fine. And then you just put a brief summary at the end, either on the Tpcastt sheet, somewhere like that, about what you believe the poem is about or what it means. So that can be 2 sentences max and be done with it. Okay, not a big deal. But when you finish, please listen carefully. This is not necessarily going to take you very long to do, especially if you're helping each other, which you're welcome to do, because this is a new concept. But when you finish, you still have USA test prep. If you forgot about it, if you haven't done it, you need to get in there and do it, because you're not going to get that 100 quiz grade if you don't get a 70 on it. You can work on your American Dream website, but remember, on Thursday you have your vocab quiz. And I told you I'm giving you bonus points if you write the words down instead of just studying from the PowerPoint, but that's up to you, all right? So I hope you have a good day. I will see you on Thursday. I promise. It's going to be awesome. So have fun and make these good. All right. I look forward to reading them. Have a good day.